If this reached you now, it wasn't random. You didn't stumble into this moment. You were guided here because something inside you is already listening. You felt it building quietly, in the pauses between thoughts, in the way time has felt slightly distorted lately, like life has been whispering instead of shouting, waiting to see if you would lean in. This message isn't for the crowd. It doesn't reach the loud. It reaches the ones who notice patterns, who feel shifts before they have names, who have learned to sit alone without feeling empty. It reaches you because you're already standing at the edge of a threshold. There is a final invitation open right now. Not symbolic, not abstract, physical, energetic. A gathering, a convergence of intention, a moment where presence itself becomes the activation. New York, Times Square, a place built on motion, noise, speed, and spectacle, yet paradoxically powerful for those who know how to stand still within chaos. That's why you're being called there. Not to be seen, but to align. You may not even know why the idea pulls at you. You might feel resistance first. Logistics. Timing. Duh. That's normal when intuition is louder than logic. But listen carefully. Some invitations don't repeat themselves. They arrive once, softly, and then move on. When chosen ones gather in the physical, something changes. Energy stops circulating only internally and begins to amplify outward. Thoughts synchronize. Intentions sharpen. The invisible becomes tangible. This isn't about an event. It's about resonance. Right now, the sky is supporting what you've been sensing. The Sun and Mercury are meeting in Aquarius, not dramatically, not explosively, but intelligently. This is a mental and communicative portal. A window where ideas that have been forming quietly finally find language. Where clarity arrives without force. Aquarius doesn't move emotionally. It moves with awareness. It connects dots you didn't know were related. It reveals patterns that explain why things unfolded the way they did. You may suddenly understand why conversations stalled weeks ago. Why plans paused. Why you felt like you were waiting without knowing for what. Mercury here isn't asking you to think harder. It's asking you to listen differently. To notice what keeps returning to your mind without effort. Over the past 6 to 8 weeks, you planted seeds. Not all of them consciously. Some were planted through frustration. Others through hope. Some through silent decisions you made late at night when no one was watching. You asked for change, even if you didn't say it out loud. You asked for alignment, even if you used different words. You asked for movement, even if part of you was afraid of what that would require. Now those seeds are responding. Not always with results. Often with opportunities. And this is where many people misunderstand manifestation. They expect arrival. But what usually comes first is invitation. A door cracks open. A name appears in your inbox. A conversation presents itself unexpectedly. An urge to go somewhere you hadn't planned. These are not distractions. They are bridges. The universe rarely hands you the destination. It hands you the next step and watches to see if you trust it enough to take it. That's why showing up matters. Not energetically alone. Physically. Presence is an action. It's a declaration that says, I'm available for what I asked for. When you place your body in alignment with your intention, things accelerate. Not because of effort, because of coherence. You may have noticed that lately, when you say yes to the right things, exhaustion doesn't follow. Instead, there's a quiet expansion, a sense of being supported rather than drained. That's alignment speaking. There's a simple mantra that carries more power than it seems. Everything that shows up for me is for me. Not everything lasts. Not everything stays. But everything teaches, redirects, or unlocks something. When you stop resisting invitations that feel slightly uncomfortable but deeply aligned, reality reorganizes around your willingness. This is how chosen ones move. Not loudly, but decisively. When you step into environments that match your frequency, you don't have to search for connections. They find you. People on similar timelines recognize each other without explanation. Conversations move faster. Trust forms without performance. This is how collaborations are born. How support appears. How unexpected doors open without force. It's not magic. It's resonance. Birds don't gather by agreement. They gather by vibration. And right now, your vibration is changing. As the moon moves into Pisces, logic softens. The internal critic quiets. The need to control dissolves slightly. Pisces energy doesn't demand certainty. It asks for trust. You may feel more sensitive, more creative, more aware of subtle emotional currents, both your own and others. This isn't weakness. It's attunement. When the mind steps back, intuition steps forward. Decisions become felt rather than debated. You may notice that answers arrive when you stop chasing them. That clarity comes in waves, not sentences. Let it. This isn't a time to overthink your next move. It's a time to feel into it. If something feels expansive, follow it. If something feels heavy, pause. Your intuition is sharper than you think. You've just been taught to doubt it. Preparation matters now. Not in the frantic sense, but in the receptive one. Rest your body. Clear your schedule where you can. Leave space for the unexpected. There are moments coming that reward openness. The VIP dinner isn't about exclusivity. It's about intimacy. Shared tables create different conversations than crowded rooms. They allow truth to surface. The 108 Circle Awakening training on the 23rd isn't just a date. It's a marker. A point where preparation meets activation. You don't attend moments like these to become someone else. You attend to remember who you already are. And here's what matters most. You don't need to know exactly how this unfolds. You only need to recognize the pull. The ones who feel called now are already in motion, even if nothing external has changed yet. The shift begins internally. Externally, it follows. If you're feeling the quiet urgency, not panic, not fear, but a gentle insistence, trust that. That's alignment knocking. Some opportunities don't announce themselves loudly. They appear softly and wait to see who notices. You did. And that's why this reached you now. You may have noticed something else too. A subtle pressure in your chest. Not anxiety. Anticipation. It's the feeling that something is lining up behind the scenes before you're fully aware of how. Like furniture moving quietly in a dark room while you sit perfectly still, sensing the shift without seeing it yet. This is what happens right before clarity arrives. The Sun and Mercury meeting in Aquarius doesn't create chaos. It creates understanding. But understanding doesn't always come as answers. Sometimes it comes as a change in the questions you're asking. You're no longer wondering if you're meant for something more. That question already dissolved. Now you're wondering how it unfolds without forcing, without betraying your nature, without becoming someone louder or harder than you truly are. Aquarius energy doesn't reward imitation. It activates originality. That's why lately you may have felt disconnected from paths that once made sense. Careers that looked good on paper but felt empty. Relationships that functioned but didn't nourish. Goals that belonged to an older version of you. You didn't fail those paths. You outgrew them. Mercury here doesn't push you forward. It realigns your internal compass. You begin to notice which thoughts energize you and which ones drain you instantly. Which conversations expand you. Which environments dull you. This awareness is not accidental. It's refinement. Over the past weeks, your manifestations have been listening more than acting. You spoke them through emotion, through repetition, through quiet longing. And now they are responding, not with conclusions, but with invitations that require your participation. This is where discernment becomes sacred. Not every opportunity is meant to be taken. But every aligned opportunity feels a certain way before it makes sense. It feels calm. It feels slightly unfamiliar. It feels like standing at the edge of a pool before stepping in. Not fear, but awareness of depth. You may have noticed invitations appearing that don't promise instant reward. No guarantees. Just possibility. And that's intentional. Instant results bypass growth. Opportunities invite you into it. When the universe respects you, it doesn't hand you shortcuts. It offers you doorways. The question is never, will this work? The question is, who do I become if I say yes? Chosen ones aren't here to accumulate outcomes. They're here to embody alignment. That's why action matters now, not frantic action, not proving action, but responsive action. Movement that says, I trust what's unfolding enough to meet it halfway. Showing up is not about performance. It's about availability. Availability tells the universe you're no longer observing from a distance. You're participating. And participation changes everything. When you place yourself in rooms that match your frequency, you don't need to explain who you are. You're recognized through presence alone. This is how timelines merge. This is how connections form without effort. This is how support appears in unexpected forms. You may meet people who feel strangely familiar, even if you've never seen them before. Conversations may skip the surface entirely. Ideas may flow faster than logic can track. That's not coincidence. That's resonance activating. As the moon prepares its transition into Pisces, the energy softens further. Mental resistance loosens. Control relaxes. Pisces doesn't ask you to decide. It asks you to trust. Trust the sensations in your body when you imagine certain outcomes. Trust the pull toward experiences that don't inflate your ego but soothe your spirit. Trust the quiet excitement that doesn't need validation. This lunar shift favors creators, feelers, intuitives, and those who have learned to listen beneath noise. You don't need a full plan right now. You need presence. Presence allows preparation to meet opportunity at the exact moment it's required, not earlier, not later. And something important is approaching. Not something to fear. Something to step into. The kind of moment that only reveals its value after you've said yes. If you feel yourself hovering between comfort and expansion, stay there for a moment. That space is sacred, because what comes next doesn't ask you to rush. It asks you to be honest. Honest about what you're ready for. Honest about what you're no longer willing to settle for. Honest about the version of yourself that's been quietly forming beneath everything else. You're closer than you think. There's a reason the noise around you has felt louder while your inner voice has grown quieter. Not because intuition disappeared, but because it's waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it again. You've been in a long phase of internal cultivation. Watching more than speaking. Observing patterns others missed. Holding yourself back, not out of fear, but because something in you knew timing mattered. That wasn't hesitation. That was preparation. Over the past cycle, you weren't manifesting outcomes. You were manifesting readiness. Readiness to release identities that no longer fit. Readiness to be seen without overexposing yourself. Readiness to move without explaining every step. Many of the intentions you set didn't look spiritual at all. They looked practical. Stability, direction, financial ease, emotional peace, purpose that doesn't exhaust you. But beneath all of them was the same request. I want my life to make sense to my nervous system. And now, reality is responding in subtle ways. You may have noticed delays that felt inconvenient but prevented misalignment. Missed connections that saved you energy. Closed doors that redirected you without drama. Those weren't blocks. They were filters. The universe doesn't rush chosen ones into outcomes that would fracture them. It slows the pace until the internal structure is strong enough to hold what's coming. That's why what's opening now doesn't arrive as certainty. It arrives as possibility with responsibility attached. Possibility asks you to participate. Responsibility asks you to stay present. You're being invited into a different relationship with momentum. Not push and collapse. Not wait and wish. But steady, responsive movement. This is where many people self-sabotage, not because they're unworthy, but because they confuse discomfort with danger. Expansion doesn't feel safe at first. It feels unfamiliar. Your system is learning a new rhythm. One where effort doesn't equal exhaustion. One where growth doesn't require suffering. And this is new territory. You may feel moments of doubt arise not because you're off path, but because your old identity is losing relevance. The version of you that survived by staying small doesn't recognize what's unfolding now. Let it be confused. You don't need to drag old explanations into new spaces. What's important now is awareness. Notice what captures your attention without force. Notice where your energy returns after distraction. Notice which ideas keep resurfacing even when you try to dismiss them. These are not random thoughts. They're signals. Mercury's influence here isn't about overthinking. It's about pattern recognition. You're seeing connections between people, places, and opportunities that didn't exist before. Or maybe they always existed, and you're only now tuned in. This tuning is why environments matter more than motivation right now. Where you place yourself physically affects how quickly alignment stabilizes. Certain spaces amplify your clarity. Others dilute it. Chosen ones don't thrive everywhere. They thrive where their sensitivity is an asset, not a liability. That's why the call to gather isn't symbolic. It's strategic. When aligned individuals share physical space, the field shifts. Ideas sharpen. Resistance dissolves. Next steps become obvious without debate. You don't have to network. You don't have to perform. You just have to arrive. And arrival itself is an act of trust. As the Pisces Moon approaches, emotional intelligence takes the lead. You're asked to feel your way forward rather than calculate it. This doesn't mean ignoring logic. It means allowing intuition to choose where logic is applied. You may feel pulled toward creativity, conversation, or rest, sometimes all within the same day. Honor that fluctuation. Pisces teaches you that flow isn't laziness. It's responsiveness. And responsiveness is power when you know how to listen. Something is being arranged in your favor, not in the loud, cinematic way people expect, but in a quiet sequence of supportive moments. A conversation that changes perspective. A meeting that reframes possibility. An invitation that aligns timing. These moments don't announce themselves as life-changing. They reveal themselves afterward. That's why presence is the currency now. If you stay aware, you won't miss what's meant for you. And if you feel a growing sense that staying where you are feels heavier than moving forward, even without guarantees, that's your answer forming. Not in words. In sensation. What's next doesn't demand certainty. It asks for sincerity. And you have that already. At this stage, what's unfolding isn't asking you to believe harder. It's asking you to participate differently. You've already done the inner work most people skip. You've sat with uncertainty. You've questioned your own narratives. You've learned how to be alone without numbing yourself. Now the shift moves outward. This is where many manifestations quietly change shape. You may have expected clarity to arrive as a final answer, a single moment where everything clicks and you feel ready. But readiness doesn't arrive that way for you. It arrives as a series of small choices that gently reposition your life. An invitation you almost ignore. A conversation you agree to have even though it feels slightly inconvenient. A decision to show up when part of you wants to stay hidden. These are not tests. They are alignments. Opportunities don't always look impressive at first glance. They often look neutral, unremarkable, easy to dismiss. But what matters isn't the surface. It's how your system responds when you imagine yourself stepping into them. If your breath deepens instead of tightens, pay attention. If your body relaxes instead of braces, that's information. Chosen ones don't rely on hype. They rely on coherence. That's why instant results are rare at this phase. Instant results lock you into forms that may not be sustainable. Opportunities keep things fluid until alignment stabilizes. Think of it this way. You didn't ask for something. You asked for the right way. And the right way unfolds through movement. This is where presence becomes action. Being present doesn't mean waiting. It means engaging with what's directly in front of you without projecting fear onto it. Saying yes doesn't mean committing forever. It means opening the door far enough to see what's on the other side. You're being asked to practice a new posture toward life, one that blends trust with discernment. Not blind faith. Not rigid control. Responsive awareness. When you adopt this posture, synchronicities increase. Not because the universe is suddenly working harder, but because you're no longer blocking its entry points. You may notice that support appears just as you need it. Information arrives right before decisions. Resources show up when hesitation fades. This is the law of alignment in motion. Alignment isn't passive. It's cooperative. You meet life halfway, and life adjusts to meet you. This is why physical presence matters so much right now. Your energy stabilizes faster when your body is where your intention is. Being in the right room at the right time isn't luck. It's positioning. And positioning doesn't require force. It requires listening. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Your frequency communicates it for you. When you enter aligned spaces, conversations unfold naturally. People speak to you as if they've known you longer than they have. Opportunities emerge through casual exchanges rather than formal pitches. This is how chosen ones operate, sideways, not head-on. As the moon continues its Pisces influence, emotional boundaries soften, but clarity deepens. You may find yourself less reactive and more receptive. Things that once triggered urgency now feel distant. Things that once felt optional now feel essential. That's discernment refining itself. You're learning the difference between distraction and direction. Direction feels calm even when it requires courage. Distraction feels loud even when it promises comfort. Right now, your job isn't to solve your future. It's to notice where your energy wants to move next. One step, one conversation, one decision to show up differently. This is how momentum builds without burnout. And something important is taking shape because of it. Not all at once. Not visibly yet. But steadily. You don't need to rush this phase. You just need to stay honest inside it. Because what follows opportunity isn't pressure. It's confirmation. And confirmation arrives when you're already in motion. There's a quiet truth you're beginning to live instead of just understand. Alignment doesn't chase you, it responds to you. The moment you stop asking, "Is this safe?" and start asking, "Is this true?" everything reorganizes. This is the law of alignment in its most practical form. Not mystical. Not dramatic. Immediate. When you say yes from presence rather than pressure, your energy sends a clear signal. It tells life you're no longer negotiating with fear. That's why the simple phrase, "Everything that shows up for me," is more than a mantra. It's a posture. It doesn't mean everything stays. It means everything serves. And when you move through the world with that posture, resistance softens. People meet you differently. Opportunities unfold without friction. You may have noticed that when you show up fully, even briefly, things move faster. Decisions clarify. Conversations deepen. Outcomes resolve themselves. This isn't coincidence. It's coherence. Chosen ones don't force alignment. They allow it by being present where their energy is meant to land. Presence isn't loud. It's undeniable. That's why physical action matters now. Not busy action. Intentional placement. Where you choose to stand. Who you choose to sit with. What conversations you allow to shape you. These choices tune your frequency more than visualization ever could. When you enter a space aligned with your intention, you don't have to announce anything. Your nervous system relaxes. Your thoughts slow. Your awareness expands. This is how you know you're in the right environment. And in the right environment, yes, energy becomes natural. You stop overthinking invitations. You stop bargaining with your intuition. You respond instead of hesitate. Not recklessly. Honestly. Yes, energy doesn't mean agreeing to everything. It means agreeing to what feels congruent even if it stretches you. Stretching isn't strain when it's aligned. It's activation. You may notice that as you embody this, old patterns fall away without effort. People who thrived on your hesitation drift. Situations that relied on your self-doubt lose power. This isn't loss. It's recalibration. The universe adjusts to the version of you that shows up. And the version of you showing up now is clearer, quieter, more decisive. You're no longer asking permission to take up space. You're simply occupying it. This is why certain connections feel inevitable lately. Why certain conversations feel prearranged. Why certain opportunities feel like confirmations rather than surprises. They were waiting for you to arrive energetically. As Pisces energy continues to soften your internal resistance, trust becomes embodied rather than conceptual. You don't need proof first. You need alignment first. Proof follows. This is a reversal from how you were taught to move through the world, but it's how chosen ones move. They don't wait for certainty. They create it through presence. And right now, presence is your power. If you feel yourself being asked to say yes to something that feels simple but significant, listen. If you feel the urge to show up even without a clear role, honor it. These are not random impulses. They are instructions arriving in a language you're finally fluent in. What comes next doesn't require you to become someone new. It requires you to stop holding back who you already are. And once you do, alignment doesn't just meet you. It multiplies. As you continue to move this way, something subtle but unmistakable begins to happen. You stop feeling like you're searching for your people. Instead, you start recognizing them. There's no announcement. No dramatic realization. Just an ease that settles in your body when you're around certain individuals. Conversations don't require translation. Silence doesn't feel awkward. You don't feel the need to compress yourself to be understood. This is energetic attraction in its pure form. You've reached a point where your frequency is no longer broadcasting confusion. It's broadcasting clarity. And clarity is magnetic. You may notice that people with aligned intentions begin to appear naturally: collaborators, supporters, mirrors, even potential partners. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you've stopped sending mixed signals. When your internal world stabilizes, your external world responds. This is the principle behind birds of a feather. Not similarity of personality, but similarity of state. Aligned environments do more than introduce you to people. They reveal versions of you that couldn't surface elsewhere. You speak differently. You think more expansively. You feel safer taking up space. This isn't performance. It's permission. And permission unlocks potential. In these spaces, opportunities don't feel transactional. They feel relational. Ideas are exchanged, not sold. Support is offered without leverage. Possibility expands through resonance rather than effort. You may find yourself meeting someone who holds a missing piece, not because they complete you, but because they complement where you're going. That's how aligned connections work. They don't distract you from your path. They clarify it. You don't feel pulled off center. You feel reinforced. This is especially true now as your sensitivity sharpens rather than dulls. Where once emotional depth felt like a liability, it now functions as discernment. You read energy quickly. You sense intention before words confirm it. This isn't judgment. It's awareness. And awareness protects your momentum. As the moon continues to move through Pisces, emotional intelligence deepens across connections. You're more attuned to subtext. More aware of who feels safe to open with and who requires distance. Honor that. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, and that's not isolation. That's self-respect. The connections forming now don't need to be many. They need to be coherent. One aligned conversation can shift a timeline more than 100 superficial ones. You may also notice opportunities emerging through these connections. Introductions, ideas, invitations, not forced, not strategized. This is how soul-aligned collaboration begins. Not with ambition, with resonance. And resonance is built through shared presence. When you place yourself in environments where people are tuned to growth rather than performance, something relaxes in you. You don't have to prove value. You exchange it. This exchange strengthens your field. And as your field strengthens, your confidence becomes quieter but more stable. You no longer wonder if you belong. You feel it. This is the signal that alignment is no longer theoretical for you. It's lived. And what's being formed through these connections isn't just support for now, it's scaffolding for what's coming next. Because what you're stepping into can't be built alone. And for the first time, you don't have to. There's a softness settling over your inner world now, and it's not weakness. It's trust taking shape. As the moon moves fully into Pisces, the mental grip loosens. The constant need to evaluate, predict, and prepare begins to dissolve. Not because those skills are gone, but because they're no longer leading. This lunar energy shifts you from analysis into knowing. You may notice that decisions feel different now. They don't come from urgency. They arrive as quiet certainty. You don't debate them for hours. You sense them in your body first. A subtle ease, a gentle pull, a calm readiness. Pisces doesn't operate through logic. It operates through alignment with the unseen. That's why creativity increases. Dreams become more vivid. Emotions move through you instead of getting stuck. You may find yourself needing more rest, more solitude, or more time near water, music, or silence. This isn't withdrawal. It's integration. Your nervous system is recalibrating to a higher level of coherence. This is a phase where forcing clarity backfires. The answers you're looking for don't come when chased. They surface when you allow space. Trust that. You've spent enough of your life trying to make sense of everything. Now you're being invited to feel your way forward. That doesn't mean abandoning discernment. It means letting intuition choose when discernment is needed. You may notice that when something is not aligned, your body responds immediately. Fatigue, disinterest, a subtle resistance. And when something is aligned, there's a gentle expansion, even if fear is present. Fear doesn't disappear at alignment. It just stops being the decision maker. Pisces teaches you that trust isn't blind. It's sensitive. Sensitive to timing. Sensitive to tone. Sensitive to what your system can actually hold. This is why silence becomes instructive now. You may receive guidance through pauses rather than words. Through what doesn't happen as much as what does. An unanswered message. A delayed response. A moment where you're forced to wait. These are not denials. They're refinements. The moon here asks you to stop filling every gap with interpretation. Let meaning arrive on its own. This is especially important around decisions that affect your future direction. If something feels rushed, pause. If something feels fluid, move. Flow is the signal. And flow doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels ordinary, natural, undramatic. That's how you know it's real. You don't need external validation right now. You need internal permission. Permission to trust what you feel even when you can't explain it. Permission to follow resonance over reassurance. Permission to let life meet you where you are instead of where you think you should be. This moon isn't asking you to leap blindly. It's asking you to float, to let the current carry you a little. And when you do, you'll notice something important. You're not losing control. You're gaining alignment. Because when intuition leads, effort decreases, and timing sharpens. And what's coming next depends less on what you decide, and more on how willing you are to trust what's already guiding you. That guidance is quieter than fear. But it's steadier. And it's here now. Now everything begins to converge. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But with precision. This is the phase where preparation meets opportunity, not by chance, but by alignment you've been cultivating without even realizing it. What's coming doesn't ask you to hustle. It asks you to arrive ready. Ready doesn't mean perfected. It means present. That's why the details matter now. How you care for your body. How you clear your schedule. How you ground your energy before stepping into shared spaces. You're not preparing for an event. You're preparing for activation. Moments like the VIP dinner are not about exclusivity or status. They're about coherence. Smaller circles hold energy differently. They allow honesty to surface. They allow recognition without performance. At a shared table, conversations unfold that wouldn't happen in passing. Ideas land. Mirrors appear. Possibilities take shape without force. This is where timelines quietly shift. And the 108 Circle Awakening training on the 23rd isn't just a date on a calendar. It's a container. A space where intention becomes embodied through shared focus. Where what you've been sensing internally begins to anchor externally. These moments don't change you overnight. They confirm what's already been changing. You may notice that after gatherings like these, life doesn't speed up, it clarifies. Decisions feel simpler. Paths narrow in a relieving way. Distractions lose their pull. This is alignment stabilizing. To prepare, you don't need rituals that exhaust you. You need honesty. Notice what you're bringing with you energetically. Release what no longer fits. Arrive without trying to control outcomes. Curiosity is enough. Openness is enough. And courage doesn't look like certainty here. It looks like willingness. Willingness to be seen without self-editing. Willingness to receive without deflecting. Willingness to stay present even when things feel unfamiliar. This is how future timelines recognize you. By how you show up now. Stay hydrated. Rest when your body asks. Listen more than you speak. Let connections unfold naturally. You don't need to extract meaning from every moment. Some moments work on you quietly. As this cycle completes, remember this. You were never late. You were never behind. You were preparing. And now what you prepared for is close enough to touch. Not because you forced it. Not because you chased it. But because you stayed receptive long enough for alignment to find you. If you feel a gentle excitement mixed with calm, that's your signal. Not to rush, but to step forward. With openness. With trust. With your full presence. Because the door is open now. And you're ready to walk through it. And before you move on from this moment, pause. Not because there's more to understand, but because there's something to feel. Notice how quiet it is inside you right now. That quiet isn't emptiness. It's recognition. You didn't need convincing. You didn't need proof. You stayed because something in you already knew this message was meant to find you. That's how alignment works. It doesn't shout. It resonates. You are standing in a window of timing that doesn't stay open forever. Not to pressure you, but to remind you that awareness is a gift that asks for response. If you feel called to gather, to show up, to place yourself in the stream of what's unfolding, honor that. If you feel called to stay still and integrate, honor that too. Chosen ones move differently because they listen before they act. But listening is only half the cycle. Action, even quiet, simple action, completes it. If this message mirrored something you've been sensing but couldn't articulate, stay connected. These transmissions continue for those who are tuned in. If you feel resonance, let it be known, not for validation but for recognition. Energy responds when acknowledged. And if you're ready to step into spaces where alignment isn't theoretical but lived, where presence activates possibility, and where your sensitivity is finally an asset, then don't ignore the pull. Follow what feels calm. Follow what feels true. Follow what expands without forcing. This path doesn't require urgency. It requires sincerity. Stay open. Stay aware. And when the next invitation arrives, because it will, you'll know exactly what to do. You always have.